What's going on, everybody? I wanted to do a little video with a voiceover. And this guy understands money, so I'm going to kind of use this as a teaching tool for some people. Some people may not like the way that I teach. They may think I'm jumping all over the place. Well, if this was so simple to teach on one line, if it was so simple to teach law just in one course, I mean, a person that could bundle that up and sell it would make millions. Finance and things can be complex because it was made to be complex. It was made for people to not figure this out. But this guy, Richard here, I think his name's Richard Werner, is very good with understanding finance. And that's why I'm using this video because he understands finance very well to a point that I hope that it teaches you about money. And if you understand um, what he's saying, it'll help you. So with uh, what I'm wearing today is Xerjoff Ascento, and it seems like Xerjoff don't miss. All right, let's go.
Werner in earlier videos has explained about basic banking and in particular about a shortcoming of the British banking structure. Now, Dr. Werner, I've heard that it is possible that the government could create debt-free and interest-free money. This seems an extraordinary idea. How could this be without bad effects?
I think what's extraordinary is that we've outsourced the money creation and allocation to the private sector. And that if we want to have more growth, we need the banks to create more credit, and therefore somebody needs to borrow and go into debt. So more growth requires more debt. I think that's really the extraordinary thing, that we have such a strange and inefficient system of money supply.
And it doesn't have to be like this?
No, it doesn't. The current system is beneficial, particularly to the banking sector, but there are alternatives. Um, it's obvious that the current system is beneficial to the banks because they have such a pivotal role in the economy. They're allowed to create the money supply and allocate it, so they have all these allocation decisions.
And they create interest, charge interest.
And they charge interest for it. So, and of course, interest compounds. It's a mathematical exponential formula where soon you will have to repay not just what you borrowed with a bit of a fee, but actually twice as much as you borrowed or a multiple of what you borrowed.
Right.
So compounding interest places a big burden on society.
Now we have to understand why the system operates as it operates. Now, to understand why the system operates as it operates, it's not just talking about the problem. Uh, it's about talking about the not just the problem and the solution. So you have to understand, how does the bank get into this aspect to where they can do this? Now, whenever you sign a promissory note, the promissory note acts as a pledge. Okay, it is a future pledge to complete an obligation on certain dates or a certain time. The promissory note does not require you to pay actual money. It requires you to either pay money or to perform. The choice is yours. So, a pledge, a promise, a type of security interest in which a lender takes possession of personal property as a security for an obligation. Okay. The personal property involved is called a pledge. Initially, the lender's possessory interest is subject to the rules of bailment or other types of deposit. If the borrower fails to perform as agreed, the lender may sell the personal property and keep the proceeds. Now, you have to understand, what is the difference between a pledge and a gift? Because a lot of times people don't understand that what a difference is between a pledge and a gift. So look, outright gift, a one-time gift may be made prior to graduation. Pledges are multi-year commitments paid over the next 3 years. So then what is the difference between a pledge and a gift? All right. So we'll go to this. All right, conditional pledge. Conditional pledges are classified as e-pledges, are generally an expression of intent, non-binding, where the terms of the promise or the supporting documentations are not firm enough to qualify as a W pledge. They can also be pledges that rely on conditions to be satisfied or have a rate or right of return. So when you sign a promissory note, you have a right as of a return of the promissory note. Okay, many people don't know this. This means that the revenue cannot be recorded until the cash is received. All right, outright gift, transfer of assets, or other than as a payment on a promise, pledge, or commitment. Revenue is recorded when cash is received. So when you're dealing with gifts or transactions, the key is to understand the nature. What is the difference between gifting and pledging? See, some of these questions, this is how I do a lot of research. Some of you guys need to learn how to do research, and it'll definitely help you. Okay, so let's see. Gifts and pledges, pledges versus donations. When you give a unrestricted note or draft, it's considered a gift. But let's go back to Richard because Richard is very knowledgeable in this. So we'll go back to Richard.
Society.
Right, yes, I looked up a mortgage calculator on the web, and for a 26-year mortgage at 6%, you pay back as much in interest over that period as you do the original loan you had.
Right, so you can see that this is quite attractive
To the
for
banks,
banks because they receive this interest and they're very profitable. We know the bank sector is very profitable. So the current system is, of course, how banks like to run the show. But really, it's an extracting mechanism where the financial sector, the banking sector, is extracting resources from the economy. And really, what is the value added by banks? We're always told, oh, they increase efficiency in the economy, but, well, they don't produce anything. And the alternative ways of actually more efficiently allocating finance and funding. And the alternative.
Now I'm going to intervene. I'm going to interrupt for this moment, and I want to understand. I want you to understand why the banks are able to do this. Okay, so you have to understand that the banks are only able to do this because you're giving them the authority to do this. Um, so you have to understand what a demand deposit is. A bank account can be withdrawn without prior notice. So when I'm telling you guys that you have account numbers and stuff like that that you guys may not know about, or you may have an account number that's used in different aspects and you may not know how it's used. It's because you create what is called a general deposit. Okay, so a general deposit or a deposit of money in a bank that is the to credit of the depositors, thereby giving the depositor the right to money and creating a creditor debtor relationship. So the reason why you're able to do that, or the reason why the bank is able to take your notes, your drafts, is because there is a creditor debtor relationship. So there's a general deposit and then there's a special deposit. A special deposit is a deposit that is made for a specific purpose that is to be returned to the depositor and creates a bailment or or trust. Okay, so if you're giving the bank something generally, that means that you are transferring it over. So look, the deposit, as I've stated in many videos or many videos, because people forget I have an Instagram. So I also have an Instagram. So sometimes on Instagram, it's a little easier to make in YouTube videos. So I'm able to post more on Instagram than I am on YouTube because I might be in the middle of doing something. So it's easy to just sit down and get something to eat and then make a post on Instagram opposed to, YouTube where it takes a little bit more. So you have to first understand what a deposit is. So a lot of times people don't understand the context of words or how they're being used. So just look up, if you want to learn something, always look up the basics. What does this word mean? How do I find it? How do I find more information? Start with the words. because the words are what they're using, what people are using to deceive you. So first you have to understand what the state, a deposit is a noun. So you would think that a deposit would be uh, an action, a verb or action verb or something, but it's a noun. So I can get into this deeper, when I'm going to do my private class on this. Um, but the state of deposit, the state of being deposited, okay, as in an account, holding the property on, compare escrow, trust. See, compare escrow, trust. So they're saying escrow and trust are pretty much like the general concept of this. So when you have an account, it's acting as like an agreement where something is placed for safekeeping. But if you do a general deposit account, then the bank takes title to that account. Okay, so it says something being placed for safekeeping as money deposited in a bank's ESP to one's credit. Now, A, let's go here because this is a great definition. A general deposit is a bank deposit that can be withdrawn without prior notice. General deposit, a deposit of money in a bank that is to credit of the depositor, thereby giving the depositor the right to money, creating a creditor-debtor relationship. Okay? The reason why your bank does not respect your invoices, your remittances, your drafts, your notes, is because you have a creditor debtor relationship. And that's why they do what they do.
Alternative that I think would be most acceptable to people is the one that most people think we already have anyway,
Okay, right.
which is a system where the government creates and allocates the money supply.
Right.
And then you wouldn't have this burden of compounding interest, and you can have money without debt. You can expand the money supply without debt. All this is possible. In fact, has happened in history. It's been done in the past.
Right. In our current economic crisis, the government is having to take account of the huge amount of debt from past governments' policies. A lot of people are suffering from the cuts that are required. But this might change in future if debt did not arise. Is this a possibility?
Yes, well, just thinking about how we got here, of course, governments have huge debts because they've used the system, the monetary system that has been established over centuries now in many countries. And so governments think, many politicians think that governments need to borrow and get indebted in order to fund government expenditure. That's not actually true. And of course, at the same time, the tax burden has been very high. Taxpayers need to service the interest and repay government bonds. And so you can see that this is the extraction mechanism at work,
Okay,
where the
right.
government levies the interest and has to.
Well, first, first we have to understand. I don't know why this doesn't stop when I do it. I mean, I wish I could have a cleaner edit on this. And maybe I should have took this and chop it up, but I'm learning just like everybody else is. So we have to understand what debt financing is. So we live in a system, and in his concept of what he's saying is the government controls the money supply and not the central banks. So there's really no difference because like when you're getting into old accounts and old anything that's allegedly owed, the interest is supposed to be paid to the account and not the bank. But the bank claims the interest because the person who is managing the account doesn't know what they're doing. So since a lot of us are not taught this in school, nobody has a banking 101 class in school. Nobody has an accounting, well, there's accounting classes in school, but the accounting that's being taught is not to teach the people how to use accounting effectively. It's being taught to still keep the system going on. That's why the rich people keep getting rich, because they're running the game and they're running the education systems. Some people claim, "Oh, I'm so educated. I got a master's in this. I got a bachelor in this," and don't know shit. Okay, you don't have a master's in life. That doesn't exist. So when it comes down to debt financing, so you have to understand. Don't let the word debt scare you. Debt financing is essentially the act of raising capital by borrowing money from a lender or a bank to be repaid at a future date in return for a loan. Creditors are then owed interest on the money borrowed. Lenders typically require monthly payments on both short and long term schedules. Debt financing also includes peer to peer lending, lines of credit, and government subsidized loans. These loans are usually designed to help small businesses acquire capital with reduced risk. More on that below. Okay, so anyway, once you understand that the system is a debt based system, okay, you'll understand it more because everything is debt based. So they're not, when people are asking you for, to make payments, to settle accounts, etc., what they're doing is they're asking you to settle the agreement uh prior to any litigation. So they're reaching out to you prior to any litigation before there's any issues to settle the amount. So that's why some people do not understand what a charge off is or a closed account. A closed account is still open for adjustments and set off. So some of the accounts that you think are closed are still open for you to make claims to. Okay, so the bank isn't doing anything wrong. We are doing everything wrong. That's the point.
To raise, levies taxes and rents to raise taxes in order to pay for the compounding interest. But you could cut all that out if you had the government creating and allocating money through fiscal spending, government spending. The government can spend money into circulation, money that it has issued. And of course, I mean, this has been done in the past, and it can be done quite efficiently today with modern IT technology.
Right.
So it's
when has it been done before?
well
Specifically,
we're here in beautiful Winchester, which of course used to be the capital of England before London became the capital. So a mere 1,000 years ago. In fact, it was in Winchester when the government, of course, was here. That means the treasury was here as well, and in the
Now you have to understand the concept back in those days are different. They're not dealing in a geopolitical system. So his concept is that the world is dealing, like back in those days, they used to do international trade, but not on the line that we do now. You see what I'm saying? So for governments and banks to switch to the system that he's talking about, it will make us more top heavy in government. You see what I'm saying? So when you have some people, they don't want big government. They don't want big government. He's opting for big government because if you're going to change the system like that, you're going to have to hire more people to run the system. You see what I'm saying? So he may not understand that the system that we have now is more of a privatized system to where transactions are done on a private level, even though there's still a public standard for that level. Okay, this myth that I don't understand when people get into this myth that like gold and silver is money, and if we change the system, it's going to be better, and it's just going to be more bullshit. You see what I'm saying? So people don't understand that gold is not money. Gold is and he, even though he didn't mention this, I wanted to address this, so I'm just going to address it in this video. Gold is a commodity. It's not money. Okay. So I'm just doing these quick links so you understand. You can go search on this. You have to understand that there are more future bets on the market on gold where the amount of gold in circulation is not accurate. You see what I'm saying? So the amount of gold in circulation, then there's people who have 401ks that are based in gold. There's people who have, uh, 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 you know, physical gold. There's people who have accounts that are backed by gold. That's still bullshit. It's the same. You don't have the gold in the actual account. You see what I'm saying? Then during the times when they were using the gold system, it still was a presumption. So look, is gold a commodity or a currency? Obviously, we know it's not a currency, but it can be used like that. But the answer, technically speaking, it is both. Gold is definitely a commodity, but it can be used in a similar ways to currency. But yet, people tell you, if you read Article 1, Section 10, gold and silver is money. No, gold and silver, the clause in there is to stop the states from printing money. Okay, so is gold a future or a commodity? Gold is considered both a commodity and currency. Why? Because when you mint gold and put it in circulation, it acts as a currency. I don't get why people don't get this. A currency is something that is traded. So let's just look at the legal definition of currency, and then we'll get back to Richard on this. All right. So we'll just keep it simple. Currency can be defined as a system of money issued by a state or a national territory used by the people in that nation, allowing to carry out monetary exchanges. So that's what currency is. I think people think that the Federal Reserve notes that they use is currency, and yes, it is. It's a form of currency, just like gold is a form of currency. If gold is put in circulation and used for transaction, it's fucking currency. So I don't care what people saying they may need to study the monetary system better, but no, a gold can be considered currency, but it has to put in circulation and be used for transactions. All right, let's go back to Richard.
Roughly, the government figured out a way of
What the hell is wrong with this thing?
adding to the money supply without creating the problems of compounding interest for the government. The government issued government money. This was in the form of tally sticks, which is an ancient, almost prehistoric form of money. But this was introduced systematically by the Treasury, and the tally sticks were accepted for tax payments, and that, of course, gives this money its value.
Right.
And this worked quite well, and the economy.
See, money is given value by acceptance. Okay, by acceptance, by offer and acceptance. Okay, money is not given value because it is a physical commodity or it isn't. Money is given value by its acceptance. Okay, so look, um, okay, so we'll keep it very simple. If you understand the Uniform Commercial Code, it'll tell you the same. Okay, by offer and acceptance, a transaction there becomes an agreement. Okay, so look, the meaning of offer and acceptance is the basis of a contract. To form a contract, there must be an offer made by one party, which is in turn accepted by another party, and then in most cases, goods and services must be exchanged between the two. Okay, so we have to understand what are the elements of an offer. Okay, in contract law, the party making the offer is called the offeror. Put simply, this is a person or company that has ownership in some form of the goods and services being offered. Now, when a person owns their house or when a person is selling a house, does the bank own it? No, they don't. You see what I'm saying? The bank doesn't, but the bank does offer their services on in regards to the chattel paper. But you give the bank a security interest, but that's not here nor there. Okay, look, the other party to the agreement is called the offeree. This is a person or company willing to pay the other party for some form of compensation in order to acquire ownership of the goods and services. This result of this agreement is a legally binding contract, which is usually but not always finalized through signatures of both parties. Okay, so it says usually but not always signed. All right, let's go back to what Richard is saying.
From this, and government debt could be minimized.
Right, so there was no interest to pay or
That's
minimized.
right.
Yeah,
That's right.
right.
Of course, certain bankers didn't like this. They would have preferred a system where you have to borrow at interest. Of course, this is the system that we now have worldwide, but there's no reason why we can't change that. And now, with modern technology, we could do it even better than 800 years ago.
Right.
That's right.
Right. Thanks very much. Very promising. Thank you. See our other videos featuring Professor Werner's ideas on banking and the economy.
All right, I hope you guys learned something here. I'll go more into some contract stuff if that's what people are interested in. But you guys have to understand things like offer and acceptance, etc. This is really what is being done to you that you're not understanding, because you're offering to do something and then you're not performing. So when you stop performing, that's when they start accelerating your loan. Performance is not always considered paying money. All right. Let's show you. All right. So performance in contract law, there must be consideration for the contract to be enforceable. In some contracts, this means that one party promises something in exchange for a performance from the second party. This action of completing that performance fulfills the second party's obligation in the contract. For example, one party may promise to pay another party $100 if the second party paints the house. The painting of the house is the performance required of the second party, and doing so would complete their role in the contract. It is usually not necessary for the completed performance to be perfect. Instead, the standard that must be met is substantial performance. So, substantial performance. See, you have to understand these. So, like, if you're bringing legal claims against your bank or financial institution, you have to understand these frames. I mean, there is so much to law. I mean, just the basic understanding is good enough. But when you really get into this stuff, you can bring claims that really that shake their knees. Okay, the standard used under common law to evaluate the performance of contracts. The parties performing the contract must meet the standard of substantial performance of the contract only. And performance, therefore, does not have to be perfect, or doesn't have to be perfect. I said perfect. The standard of substantial performance is not met if there is a material breach by either of the parties. Otherwise, this is a lenient standard for contracting parties to meet. Well, if you're dealing with a bank or a financial institution, they haven't performed. They have not given you the funds in the account. They have not applied the funds to the account. And now it's what you going to do about it. But I hope you guys learned something. And I'm going to shut this off. But I thank everybody on the channel, whether you have positive things to say or negative things to say. We're still trying to get to that 6,000 subscriber list, and I'm out.